How's it going, you freaking awesome people? It's your boy, Sir V. And we are here talking about something that, listen, I'm not really excited about it, but I always keep my mind open, all right? We like to keep an open mind and try and, you know, try to allow experiences to penetrate my hard outer shell, okay? So I've never been a fan of Assassin's Creed. My favorite Assassin's Creed is considered one of the worst ones, which was Assassin's Creed 3. My least favorite Assassin's Creed was considered the best one, which was 4, okay? Like, I've never really been a fan of Assassin's Creed, but I know that the games have been getting slightly better. They have been, from what I've been told. I haven't played the last 3 or 4, I don't know how many. So we're gonna be playing, or not playing, we're gonna be watching a 9-minute video on IGN. It's the final preview of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, I like Vikings. That's not really enough to sell me on a game. And I've played Assassin's Creeds in the past, so I know how the gameplay is gonna be, because they don't really change much positively. They usually like take away like cool things, or they add in ridiculous things. But yeah, we're gonna be watching this. I'm gonna keep an open mind. I'm gonna do a dissection of it. So this is a 9-minute video originally. This video, who knows, I'm gonna try to keep it around 20 minutes. If I go over, I'm sorry. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into this. Penis. All right.
The last time Assassin's Creed broke from its yearly release schedule, we got Assassin's Creed Origins, a game that fundamentally changed the direction of the series from an open-world stealth action adventure to a full-blown open-world RPG that rivals the scope of games like The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption 2, and so on.
Okay, I've never heard anybody ever describe Origins as something that rivals Witcher, Red Dead Redemption, all that kind of stuff. One thing I do know is that they very much stepped away from the historical aspect and moved more into the mythological aspect. So that's one thing that I do know, but I've never once heard anybody until this very moment compare Origins to The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption, anything like that. So I know about 6 or 7 people who've played through and beat Origins, and not a single one of them described it anywhere near that. So we're already starting off on a pretty crappy note.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla represents only the 3rd time Ubisoft has taken a year off in the 13-year history of the series. And while it doesn't upend the series the way that Origins did, my main takeaway from spending 6 hands-on hours with it is that Valhalla is significantly more ambitious and daringly different from its predecessors than one might initially think.
I'm the greatest of flighters, a master of verse.
So real quick, now this is work in progress video, but we know that, you know, Ubisoft is the king of releasing glitchy games, and Assassin's Creed have always had a lot of visual glitches. We saw quite a few of them in there, but they're not uncommon ones. So like when he was riding on the horse, his cape was flapping ugly. You know, it was just kind of going like extremely spastic, like he's holding onto a jet plane. And then when they're in the boat, there's water clipping pretty far into the boat. It didn't seem like the boat was sinking. It seemed pretty normal. So that's just minor things. I'm going to try not to focus in on graphics, because I don't ever expect graphics in an Assassin's Creed game to be that good. I expect that when you stand up on a ledge or you're sitting over a branch, it's going to look pretty when you look around, but graphically, they've never been stunners, you know? So again, I'm also going to try not to pause it. We're only 45 seconds in, and I've paused it like 3 times.
Your
Sorry.
pride is appalling, and your rhyming is worse.
Got you there, young Earth.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla's biggest departure from previous Assassin's Creed games is that traditional side quests are no more. You won't travel to a new area, talk to everyone with a marker over their head, and then just be loaded up with 20 different mini storylines to keep track of at any given time. But this doesn't mean that Valhalla's scope or scale is diminished. There are still a ton of side activities, just not in the way that you might expect.
Visual
Instead,
glitch with
when
the
you
cape.
synchronize a new part of the map, you'll discover a bunch of dots colored yellow, blue, or white that pinpoint those activities. The yellow dots correspond to a side activity that will reward you with some sort of tangible item, some gold, a new piece of gear, or a book of knowledge that either teaches or upgrades a skill. The larger the dot on the map, the more substantial the challenge and the greater the reward. A large yellow dot, for instance, might correspond to a heavily guarded fortress with multiple large chests, while a smaller yellow dot might represent a single chest hidden behind a minor locked door puzzle. White dots represent artifacts, which are traditional collectible scavenger hunts. Follow a white dot on the map and you might find a hidden Roman artifact that you can take back to your settlement and trade with a vendor, or you might complete a quick parkour challenge and find a new tattoo that you can use to customize your character. Finally, the blue dots correspond to world events. And here's where you'll find the closest things to traditional side quests. World events are incredibly varied and could be anything. A quick mini-game involving stacking cairn stones, a short encounter with an often unusual NPC, or a boss fight against a mythical creature. Let's pause for a moment and go back to the word unusual. Because one other huge departure from other Assassin's Creed games is that these world events are, more often than not, hilariously bizarre. In one event, I had to collect a bunch of viper eggs for a maniacal lady who presumably wanted to eat them just so she can unleash a nasty fart for the people above ground to suffer through.
Yes! Oh, I knew I would regret this.
In other
So here's one issue. Assassin's Creed has been unique in itself from the get-go. Now, it wasn't the first of its kind to do anything, but it was the first time that multiple different things like the open world aspect, parkour, my earring just fell out, parkour, all that kind of stuff was thrown into a game with the simplified combat. We're talking about Assassin's Creed 1. But they, for the most part, were kept very serious, and obviously the sales have been going down, but they don't want the series to die, so they've really stepped away from what the series was. Now, I've always been like the kind of person that if you really want to drastically change a series, make a new series. It's Ubisoft. They have one of the largest amount of people working under them of all gaming industries. And I said that really weird. EA, Ubisoft, they are like the two largest studios. There you go. That's the way to say it. They have the most people working for them. They also have like some of the most amount of funding. And for them to, instead of just trying to come up with a new IP, they are literally just drastically changing their already working ones. Or the other thing Ubisoft does is, instead of giving us the IPs that we want, like a new Prince of Persia or a new Splinter Cell, they just do really crappy things with those characters. Like coming out with a remaster of Prince of Persia, which is, nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted a remaster. Or like putting Sam Fisher in literally I'm sure Sam Fisher's somewhere in this game. I guarantee you there's a guy named Sam and he's fishing and he has like 3 green dots tattooed to his forehead. I promise you it's in here. But when they so drastically pull themselves away from what they set out to be originally, like adding in the mythical creatures, I have no problem with fighting a mythical creature in an open world RPG. That sounds fun. But why do you do it under the same name as a historically semi-accurate game, right? I mean, it would be like if there was a movie trilogy about World War I, and then the third movie has aliens flying down and setting the entire planet on fire. That's just not, like, the first two are super accurate. They're historically close. I mean, yeah, in Assassin's Creed, they definitely took liberties with the Apple of Eden and all that kind of stuff. But now they're just completely throwing out everything they had before. And I know they did that a couple games back. It's not like I'm saying that this is the first time they've done it. But they're also moving away from the seriousness. They seem moving away from the traditional questing, which I would have to get my hands into the game and actually play it. I've never been a fan of the running around and grabbing items in Assassin's Creed. It's always been very monotonous. It's always been very boring. You do the same things over and over again, just in different parts of the map, just to get something that's probably not that cool. At least in this one, it seems like they're rewarding you more with better armor and possibly weapons and tattoos, customization, that kind of stuff, which I appreciate. But if there really is no like actual side questing, it's just these random blue dot encounters, it tells me that they decided to take a lot of the focus out of creating individual stories in the game and wanting to just give you like little short, minute stories, which can be good. Also, keep in mind, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that we'll have to actually like get our hands on and see what it's like. A lady who wants to eat snake eggs just so she can fart so the people above her can smell it. It's kind of funny, but it seems like they had like their, 7-year-old nephew write the story and they're like, just put it in there. So we'll have to see.
I protected a lady locked in a tower who gets her kicks by pretending to be in trouble and having people save her. And in another still, I ate some hallucinogenic mushrooms and found myself in a field with seals, watching them direct me through magical doorways in a specific sequence. When asked about this change in tone, lead quest designer Philip Bergeron told me that you need peaks and valleys when you're telling a story in order to appreciate the stronger human stories, and that by positioning world events in this way, it gave the developers opportunities to deal with other subjects. He said that when you're dealing with warfare and the politics that come with the Viking Age, it gets somber very quickly, so the world events are a way to help lighten the mood from time to time and have a few beams of sunshine here and there. And true enough, I found myself giggling way more often than I typically would while playing an Assassin's Creed game. One other upside to this change...
So, I completely understand what he's saying. But he's kind of... It's a cop-out response, right? There's a lot of games, so since they wanted to compare it at the very beginning of the video, they compared it to the Witcher series and to Red Dead. Red Dead, and now I'm not actually a big Red Dead fan either. Don't hate me, all right? I'm sorry. But Red Dead did a fantastic job of giving you a very long, intricate story with lots of long, intricate side quests. Some of them are funny. They have uplifting moments that are, funny. Same with Witcher. Witcher 3, Witcher 2, and Witcher 1. Now, Witcher 2 had significantly fewer side quests, and I don't remember playing Witcher 1 because I was so young. But let's just say Witcher 3. There were so many side quests in that game. And there were some that were funny and shorter. There were some that were funny and longer. Some that were serious and short, serious, long. Doesn't matter. They did a fantastic job of actually delivering us with not only a fantastic primary story that was enjoyable to play through, but they also gave us side quests to give us that break. And for the lead designer to say, well, being an assassin and a Viking is pretty somber, so instead of doing side quests, we just made really weird, offbeat, somewhat funny, just events that happen. And no, you guys just didn't want to put the time and resources into it. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me what you think. What I hear is we didn't want to spend the time to write out a story that is of its own. That's what I'm getting from it.
Is that it makes exploration much more natural and less overwhelming. There's no longer a massive backlog of side quests to complete, so you can just explore at your leisure and complete these world events as you come across them. Bergeron said that early on, one of the things that they wanted to do was have a clear differentiator between earlier games with the same formula. So instead of having something that felt like a checklist of things to do, they put things in broader buckets that keep the air of mystery where you don't precisely know what you're going for. It was also important to remove the idea that you were grinding the map by having the same sort of repeating activities. What's nice too is that this
I mean, okay, I get what he's saying, but to ignore the fact that there is a large amount of repeating activities in the game, just from the 4 minutes and 28 seconds that we just watched right now, we already know we're chasing the little leaflet things and we're going to be going to these keeps, breaking in, getting the gold, going out. It's going to be a repeating no matter what. And is your time doing something you've already done worth the reward? Now, granted, maybe they made a huge open world with all these different keeps and each one is very significantly different to the point where it feels like a brand new experience every time. Could be. But every other game in the series would promise you, and really every other game that Ubisoft has ever created promises that it will not be that way. Ubisoft is a very copy and paste type company. They maybe will give you an open world game, and like Far Cry 3 was amazing. But Far Cry 3 had so many fluff missions and so many just literally it's the same mission, but now you're doing it in a slightly different place. That's just what they do. That's how they justify calling something an open world RPG. And keep in mind, I hate Ubisoft. I've talked about this in other videos, but a lot of companies do that. A ton. CD Projekt Red did it with Witcher 3, and they apparently are cutting out some of that for Cyberpunk, which we'll see. I'm happy. I'm very thankful for. But we're talking about the kings of fluff, the kings of Gopher Quest is Ubisoft. Like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry's, all of them, the Ghost Recons, they are the kings of literally do the exact same thing over and over again, just in slightly different areas. So I don't really trust that they're saying, oh, now it's a fresh experience everywhere you go. No, I promise you it's not.
Pivot allows Ubisoft to devote more effort into Valhalla's main quest. I was told that the team took the budget that they typically dedicate to side content and invested it in making sure that the main content had richer, deeper stories, so that anytime you commit to any given territory, you'll get a complete self-contained story that has its place in the greater scheme of things.
And so that's good. That if they're taking that budget and they're taking those resources and they're allocating them towards the story, that's great. But most people, when they play, me especially, when I play a game like Assassin's Creed, the story is my last thing to do. I want to explore. I want to do side quests. I want to do all that kind of stuff. I want to go find cool things to look at. The story is when I've run out of other things to do, or if I'm bored with doing those other things, I'll move along the story. So that's a fine way of doing it if you're going to take those resources and truly allocate them towards actually making the story better. Cool. But there's indie developers who give us amazing content from start to finish and story where it's rich, in-depth story. And we're talking anything from open world RPGs to linear stories to top-down clickers. They give us super amazing content, and they're working with a team of very few people. You know, Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access just released. The main story is fun, enjoyable. You can follow it and you can play it however you want. And there's all these other side quests. There's all these other things to explore in just the Early Access, which is just the current first third of the game, right? And there's a lot you can do. And they work with a team of like 10 to 30 people. If you want to go back and compare it to like Divinities, you know, they give us a whole lot of fantastic story with a lot of different things happening, a lot of different characters, and they're not sitting there saying, oh, we needed to allocate part of our side quest budget into our story mission budget. No, I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I don't know exactly the team size, but I guarantee you it's well over 100 people. If I were to guess, it would be somewhere between I would guess anywhere from 300 to 1,000 people are working on this game. And yeah, that means more money. I get that. They're a business. First and foremost, any game company is a business. Unless it's a very small indie dev who's literally just making it just for the love of gaming, they're a business. They have a bottom line they have to protect. But don't try to say, oh, well, the reason that we're not giving you that many side missions is so that we can make the main story better, because it's a terrible excuse. It's a very cop-out type way of excusing you doing something lazily. Again, these are my opinions, and always keep in mind, I hate Ubisoft. Just keep that in mind.
Another one of Valhalla's departures from the series is the fact that your bird will no longer spot enemies for you. In prior games, it could be used to scout an entire encampment, revealing the locations of enemies all throughout, even allowing you to see them through walls. It was a tactic that Bergeron described as an almost press the button to win kind of scenario. This time around, the team wants to create a more cohesive synergy between you and your bird. In Valhalla, your Raven can get you an overhead view of an enemy encampment and scout out potential entrances and areas of interest, sure. But in order to get a feel for where enemies are, you'll need to be physically near the area. Once you're close to an area where you suspect enemies, you can click the right stick in and activate your Odin
There's
sight.
0% chance
Valhalla's
nobody
take
would
on
see
Eagle
him.
Vision to highlight all enemies in a circle around you. And of course, one of the most talked about features in Valhalla is the return of the iconic Hidden Blade, which can once again instantly kill most, but not all, unsuspecting foes. With all of these pieces working together, along with Eivor's bow that can be powered up with a multitude of skills, there's no shortage of stealth tools in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Once blades start clashing, things are pretty familiar, though there are a few very notable differences in combat. For one, each character has both a stun bar and a health bar, and you can choose to go after either one by tailoring your combat style. Take a more defensive approach by going for counters, and you'll chip away at the enemy's stun bar, which allows you to execute a powerful finishing move for huge damage that can kill an enemy outright. Or just take a more traditional approach by just swinging your weapon at whatever moves, and you'll hack away at an enemy's health bar. But there is a wide variety of special enemy types, each with unique behaviors and attack patterns, so you'll have to tailor your combat based on the enemy you're fighting. One other big change in Valhalla is how it handles loot. In Origins and Odyssey, you were essentially showered with loot from beginning to end. That's changing in Valhalla, as Ubisoft adopts a more quality over quantity approach to your hard-earned spoils. One of the goals of the dev team from the get-go was to have the player appreciate their inventory a bit more. So they opted for a collection system where there's a narrower range of different gear and weapons, but you can invest in and upgrade them, allowing you to find and invest in the playstyle that fits you.
Yeah, we've heard that from a lot of different games in the past, and very few have ever done that right. And I'm trying to think of a game that's given us less loot that's customizable, and it was done correctly. And I can't think of anything. If you can think of something, let me know in the comments, because I can't think of a single game that's done it correct. I know for sure I've seen it in lots of games, but, you know, honestly, looting and customization is such a massive thing to me that games that don't have a good looting or customization and the stories are mediocre or whatever, they just kind of fall to the wayside of my brain. I play way too many games. But it's, again, we're hearing a cop-out. Oh, it's quality over quantity. No, it's laziness over productivity. That's really all it is. You could give us a large quantity of high quality things. It's not like, you know, it's not impossible. I mean, you can play through Borderlands, and it's not like you're holding on to the same thing over and over again, and you might be getting a ton of stuff. A lot of different guns, a lot of different armor, or, shields and all that kind of stuff. But you then get those really nice items that you're like, oh, yeah, this is going to swap out. In general, people like that. People who don't like it don't tend to loot all the time, so it's not that big of a deal to them. But what you're doing is, instead of saying, okay, in general, people prefer to have more loot at their disposal so they have a much easier time playing the way they want to play. Now you're saying, we're going to give you less loot and hopefully it fits your playstyle. That's what it is. Really is.
At its core, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is about a crew of Vikings trying to make a new home for themselves on a foreign land.
Cape glitch
and with
is
that comes your settlement.
annoying
This
me.
is a home base that you will frequently return to in order to pick up new quests in the main storyline, talk with important characters, upgrade your gear, and upgrade the various structures of the settlement itself to provide your character with better buffs and persistent perks. What's nice about the settlement is that everything you need to do in the open world kind of feeds back into it. You see the progression of your settlement mirrored in your own personal progression. When you raid a town and collect gold and supplies, those supplies can be used to improve your settlement.
I don't think that was supposed to
and make
happen.
it feel more like your own personal home. Admittedly, it's hard to see just how deep the development of your settlement can be after only 6 hours, but it's nonetheless a nice change to have all the vendors you need centralized in one place, rather than having to scour the map to find the nearest blacksmith.
Yeah, that's a
Ultimately,
fine
I ended
adaptation.
my hands-on experience with Assassin's Creed Valhalla very hopeful. I really dig the large high-level changes that Ubisoft is making, and the reasoning behind each of them makes a ton of sense. There are still a few problems with enemy AI and general bugginess in the combat that I'd like to see cleaned up before
Well,
launch, but
you won't.
above all else,
Hate
my
to break
6
it to
hours
you,
of
it won't
playtime
happen.
made me breathe a sigh of relief. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is absolutely not just a retread of ground covered by Origins and Odyssey. It's an exciting departure from what's already been done. For more Assassin's Creed Valhalla, make sure to check out our game.
All right. So I'll tell you this. I was more hyped for the game before I watched that. Visually, it looks the same as a lot of RPGs. It visually looks the same, especially as compared to, if you wanted to say, comparing it to Witcher 3, based off simply visuals, sure. The fact that they're both RPGs, sure. But there was really nothing in there that really made me go, oh, that's awesome. Like, I heard a lot of, well, this is why we're giving you less. That's what I heard. You're getting less of this, but don't worry, we think it's a good idea. So yeah, you know, no, I'm not more excited. I'm less excited, especially since watching this, I saw nothing strictly Viking-ish about it. I mean, they dress Viking-ish. So the most drawing factor for me with Valhalla was the fact that it's Vikings, and that's that 90% of the people I see commenting, like on Twitter or whatever, whenever they're talking about Valhalla and how excited they are, they're not like, oh yeah, another amazing Assassin's Creed game. They're saying, oh, Vikings are awesome. That's it. They're not praising the series. They're not even praising the company. They're just saying Vikings are awesome. And this guy played for 6 hours, and at least from the clips that he showed us, and at least from, he didn't talk about the Viking aspect really at all. So nothing really, it literally looks like every other Assassin's Creed movement combat with a changed world and a technically changed story, right? But as always, I could be wrong. It's happened before, once or twice. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe you think I'm 100% wrong. Even if you are just like an absolute Assassin's Creed fanboy, you hit dislike instantly, you know, that's fine. Let me know in the comments what you thought, what you think. Make sure you hit subscribe, ring the little bell of approval so that way you know when I post new videos. Make sure you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't really care either way. I care a little bit. And follow me over on Twitch. Also, follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Let me know what you think I should be making a video about next. Until the next live stream, until the next video, all of you guys, make sure you stay beautiful, stay wonderful, and stay awesome. Bye-bye.